Hey, how's it going, guys? TND coming back at you. The new Pantheon activity in Destiny 2 drops this week, allowing players to square off against a gauntlet of existing raid bosses, with an escalating difficulty and boss count being added weekly. But this activity is also time limited, as Bungie has stated that Pantheon will be going away with the release of the final shape on June 4th. So in this video, I wanted to share with you guys some huge tips and maybe even a couple tricks to help you and your buddies get that sweet Godslayer title before it goes away. First things first, we gotta talk about spreadsheets. Now, there are many amazing player-made resources out there. However, there are three in particular that every endgame player should always have bookmarked for whenever they're in need. The first is the Destiny Data Compendium, and it's a godsend for whenever you're trying to look for a very specific piece of information in regards to the PvE sandbox. Did you know that Wolfpack rounds deal 40% less damage with bipod rockets? You also know the exact amount of ability energy that gets refunded when Grenade Kickstart and Melee Kickstart activate. Well, that's a trick question because it actually has to do with the specific number of armor charges expended, and okay, I think you get the point now. This spreadsheet is chock full of information just like that. It is absolutely amazing. Now, if you're doing a raid boss gauntlet, you may want to know a bit about how all of your buffs and debuffs go together. Well, luckily for you, there is a spreadsheet for that as well. This guy here breaks down everything from powering buffs to global debuffs to weapon surges. Anything and everything you need to look up in order to help get your team the most DPS possible, this spreadsheet has it. Last but not least, if you're trying to really min-max your boss damage, then I cannot recommend enough Aegis's boss damage spreadsheet. This breakdown not only shows the best items for every weapon slot, but it also gives boss damage numbers for burst DPS, total damage, overall DPS. It even has rotation damage numbers in there as well. Pretty sweet. Aegis is a D2 speedrunner as well, so the bosses tab here breaks down not only how much health each boss has, but it also notes the exact loadouts for all 6 guardians in the fire team to ensure the fastest and most efficient kill possible. I'll leave links to all these spreadsheets in the description below. Next, let's talk about loadouts. Now, it kind of goes without saying, but yes, you're gonna want to have at least 2 saved loadouts for every boss fight. The first one being a loadout that prioritizes orb and heavy ammo generation. The second one being your actual DPS loadout, which will have triple surges on the legs, loader mods on the arms, etc. Remember that the 2 loadouts will need to have identical supers, aspects, and fragments, or else when you go to make the switch before damage, your entire super is going to be gone. You can have different grenades and melees, however. For example, if I wanted to use healing grenades on my Solar Warlock build here pre-DPS, then switch to fusion grenades for boss DPS, that's a-okay. Also, don't forget to have a dummy chest piece on your character as well that's equipped with 3 reserve mods in the element of your heavy weapon, so you can equip it, rally, then take it off afterwards. That might seem a little much, but trust me, those couple extra rocket shots can really go a long way sometimes. Lastly, if you want to make loadouts that are basically just armor and mods, but you don't actually want the weapons to be saved as well, just pull 3 blue weapons from your collections and use those as the saved loadout. Once you dismantle those blues, you'll see a blank space for those weapons there instead. The final thing I want to talk about here is team composition. If you look at the boss damage spreadsheet I mentioned earlier, you'll notice that there's a pretty wide variety of classes and subclasses going on between the 6 guardians. That's with good reason. Not every boss is going to be the same here. For example, Atrax is a boss based entirely around burst DPS, while a boss like Oryx will just sit there while you plink away at his giant unmoving crit spot. Each of these 8 fights is going to be a little bit different from the others, so having a team that is flexible in what you can run will help ensure that you're not sitting in the same checkpoint for 5 hours because for some reason you guys just can't get past Rolk on contest difficulty. Make sure you have the right mix of damage and support supers in the group as well. This is a raid boss gauntlet after all, so ideally the more damage you can deal the better. Running in with 5 wells and 1 tether is leaving a lot of damage on the table, so be mindful of that. I would also figure out ahead of time which player in the fire team is going to be doing the important jobs for the fight, whether that be the Divinity player, Illumina player, or a Warlock on Cenotaph to help create heavy ammo for the team. The first week of this gauntlet is only the first 4 bosses on +5 difficulty, so use those early weeks while things are still pretty easy to help refine your team strats for when things get really tough on that last week on contest difficulty. And speaking of contest difficulty, one of the last fights that week is going to be Riven, and unless your team has enough damage to one-phase her on contest, then you may need to actually do that fight legit. Luckily enough, I have just the guide for you right here.